We are Anvil, and this is...
Some bands chase glory, some bands catch it, and then there are the chosen few who bleed for it, who drag their battered gear, their broken dreams, and their unkillable spirit across decades of indifference just to keep the flame alive. Tonight, my wicked disciples of Distortion, we descend into the gospel of two such warriors, Steve Lipp's Kudlow and Robb Reiner, Anvil, the patron saints of perseverance, the iron-hearted underdogs of heavy metal. Anvil. The story of Anvil isn't just a documentary, it's a pilgrimage, a raw, unvarnished chronicle of what happens when the world forgets you but your soul refuses to forget the music. It's the sound of a dream that should have died in '83 but didn't, because Lips and Robb wouldn't let it, because metal wouldn't let it.
Metal is a lifestyle, it's not a trend.
This film rips open the myth that success is measured in platinum plaques and sold-out arenas. No, my children, success is measured in the refusal to surrender, in the willingness to play your heart out in a half-empty club in Prague like it's the Tokyo Dome, in the brotherhood that survives every missed opportunity, every bad break, every almost. So gather close, let the mistress guide you through the sweat, the heartbreak, the hilarity, and the holy fire of a band that should have been huge, but became legendary instead. Anvil began not as a business venture or a scene-engineered project, but as a childhood pact. Steve Lipp's Kudlow and Robb Reiner met as teenagers in Toronto, bonded instantly over hard rock, and vowed to spend their lives making music together. By the late 1970s, they had formed a band called Lips, playing a raw, high-energy blend of hard rock and early metal that echoed Motorhead, Priest, and the NWHM wave just beginning to crest. Their debut album, Hard and Heavy, 1981, released under the name Lips, was a scrappy, unpolished statement of intent. It showcased Kudlow's wild, expressive guitar style and Reiner's thunderous drumming, already hinting at the technical ferocity that would become their signature. When they rebranded as Anvil shortly after, the name fit, blunt, heavy, and built for impact. By 1983, Anvil had crystallized into a band with a clear identity: fast, loud, virtuosic, and unapologetically metal. That year would mark the release of the album that defined their early legacy. Metal on Metal, 1982, and Forged in Fire, 1983, were the records that should have launched Anvil into the same stratosphere as Metallica, Slayer, and Anthrax. These albums were blistering, innovative, and shockingly ahead of their time. Tracks like Metal on Metal, Mothra, and Winged Assassins showcased a band pushing speed, precision, and heaviness into new territory. Industry insiders noticed, musicians noticed, the bands who would become the titans of thrash, Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer, were all aware of Anvil and openly influenced by them.
They had, they had the Anvil, they had, their albums Metal on Metal, Forged in Fire, Hard and Heavy, the Anvil. There was an image there. There was, the Lips, the character, the kind of manic fucking out of his mind, playing with the dildo, the whole thing, the flying V, the fucking metal suspenders or whatever the getup was. I mean, it was, there was some stuff there.
Anvil was in many ways a proto-thrash band, faster than traditional metal, more technical than punk, and more extreme than their peers. But influence does not always translate into commercial success. While their peers secured major label deals and international tours, Anvil's management and label support faltered. The band had the talent and the material, but not the infrastructure. This mismatch would haunt them for decades. The second half of the 1980s was a period of grinding effort for Anvil. They continued releasing albums, Strength of Steel 1987 and Pound for Pound 1988, that maintained their signature intensity but struggled to break through commercially. The metal landscape was shifting. Glam metal dominated MTV, thrash was exploding, and labels were chasing trends. Anvil, stubbornly and admirably, refused to chase anything. Their music remained defiantly theirs, fast, heavy, and rooted in the spirit of early metal. But without major label backing, they were increasingly relegated to the underground. Tours became smaller, budgets tightened, yet the band's internal chemistry, especially the bond between Lips and Reiner, kept them moving forward. By 1990, Anvil was a respected name among musicians, but a cult act in the broader metal world. They were the band everyone knew, but not enough people heard. The 1990s were brutal for traditional metal bands. Grunge, alternative, and groove metal reshaped the landscape. Many classic metal acts either adapted or disappeared. Anvil did neither. They simply kept going. Albums like Worth the Wait, 1992, and Plugged In Permanent, 1996, showed a band still capable of writing fierce, high-energy metal, but they were released on small labels with limited distribution. The band's sound remained consistent, but the world around them had changed dramatically. Key challenges of this era included lack of stable management, minimal promotional support, shifting musical trends and financial strain, forcing band members to take day jobs to survive.
What did you do?
I delivered flowers.
How was that as a job?
That was much easier than what I'm doing now because, of course, there was no lifting weights, nothing heavy to lift. It was just flowers, and I basically got to know every funeral home in the city.
Yet through all of this, Anvil never broke up. They never paused. They never stopped recording or touring. Their output remained steady, even as their audience shrank. By the late 1990s, Anvil had entered what could be called their survival era. Albums like Absolutely No Alternative, 1997, and Speed of Sound, 1999, reflected a band still committed to speed, precision, and classic metal values. But these records were released into a world where traditional heavy metal was at its lowest commercial ebb. Still, Anvil's persistence kept them alive. They toured wherever they could: Europe, small clubs, festivals, anywhere that would have them. Their fan base, though modest, was fiercely loyal, and their reputation among musicians remained strong. This period also set the stage for what would eventually become their renaissance. The struggles, the grind, the near invisibility of these years would later form the emotional backbone of Anvil. The Story of Anvil, the documentary that would resurrect their career in the 2000s. But in 2000, none of that was visible yet. All Anvil had was their music, their friendship, and their refusal to quit.
They're never going to give up, man. They're never going to give up. They're going to fight to the end. It's like a war that will continue until they seize the enemy, basically.
How then did this flash-in-the-pan metal band become a Netflix sensation? Before he became a Hollywood screenwriter, Sasha Gervasi was a teenage metal fan in the 1980s who actually roadied for Anvil. He admired their musicianship, their humor.
One thing that's really good, man, is that we found those sleeping bags.
And their underdog spirit. As his own career took off, eventually writing films like The Terminal, he never forgot the band that had inspired him when he was young. By the mid-2000s, Gervasi reconnected with Lips and Robb Reiner and discovered that, despite their influence on giants like Metallica, Slayer, and Anthrax, they were still grinding in obscurity. They were working day jobs, playing tiny clubs, and trying to record their 13th album. That contrast, legendary influence versus real-world struggle, became the emotional core of the film. Hat struck Gervasi was that Anvil had never stopped. They were still chasing the same dream with the same intensity they had in 1983. Their persistence wasn't tragic, it was heroic. He realized their story wasn't just about a band, it was about devotion, friendship, and the cost of refusing to give up. This realization pushed him to pick up a camera and start documenting their lives, the small crowds, the disastrous European tour, the family support, the heartbreak, and the humor. The more he filmed, the clearer it became that Anvil's journey was universally relatable. The film opens by establishing Anvil's place in metal history. In the early 1980s, They were considered demigods of Canadian metal, influencing bands like Metallica, Slayer, and Anthrax, despite never achieving mainstream success. Their early albums helped shape the sound of speed and thrash metal, and musicians interviewed in the film, Slash, Lemmy, Scott Ian, Lars Ulrich, attest to their importance. This sets the stage for the Central Tension, a band that helped define a genre but never reaped the rewards. The documentary then shifts to the mid-2000s, where frontman Steve Lips Kudlow is working for a catering company in Toronto while still clinging to the dream he forged with drummer Robb Reiner when they were 14. Their friendship is the emotional backbone of the film, two lifelong friends who made a pact to rock forever and refused to break it. Despite their age and day jobs, they remain fiercely committed to Anvil. A major portion of the film follows a chaotic, low-budget European tour. Shows are poorly promoted, venues are half empty, transportation falls apart, and the band often doesn't get paid. Yet they push through each setback with a mix of frustration, humor, and sheer willpower. This sequence captures both the absurdity and the heartbreak of chasing a dream long after the world has moved on. After returning home, Anvil decides to record their 13th album, hoping it will finally give them the breakthrough they've chased for decades. The process is difficult. Money is tight, tempers flare, and the pressure is immense.
It's over. It's been over for a long time.
It's so unfair to Anvil. It's so unfair to Anvil.
But the band's passion never wavers. Their determination to keep creating, even when success seems impossible, becomes the film's emotional center. The core themes of friendship, perseverance, and identity are present throughout the film as the storyline emphasizes brotherhood, unrecognized influence, the cost of devotion, the refusal to quit. Even after decades of setbacks, they still believe in their music. The film ultimately portrays Anvil not as failures, but as artists who measure success by passion rather than fame.
I've been playing this extraordinary game of poker for years and not really winning.
Anvil's saga, as captured in the film, ends not with a fairy tale transformation, but with something far more meaningful: recognition, dignity, and a renewed sense of purpose. After decades of being overlooked, the band finally receives the validation that had eluded them since the early 1980s. Their disastrous tours, day jobs, and endless setbacks are reframed not as failures, but as proof of their devotion to the craft.
Oh my God, it's the members of Anvil.
What else do you want to see while you're here in Sundance?
Naked women.
Yeah, many.
The documentary's final stretch shows that the heart of Anvil was never fame. It was the unbreakable bond between Steve Lips Kudlow and Robb Reiner. Their friendship, forged in adolescence and tempered by years of disappointment, becomes the emotional anchor that carries them through every hardship. By the time the credits roll, the audience understands that this bond is the real engine of Anvil's longevity. Anvil emerges not as a cautionary tale, but as a testament to perseverance. Their story resonates because it mirrors the struggles of anyone who has ever chased a passion longer than logic says they should.
What did you think of the movie?
The documentary doesn't rewrite their past, it reframes it, revealing the courage it takes to keep going when the spotlight fades. In the end, Anvil. The story of Anvil isn't just about a band. It's about resilience, loyalty, and the stubborn, beautiful belief that the next show, the next album, the next chance might be the one that finally lands. And for Anvil, that belief, more than fame, became their legacy. But is it a legacy of celebrated failure?
Too much metal in this movie for one hand. I gotta put both hands in there. It's the Hoosiers of heavy metal. Come and see it.
Mark, you particularly liked a film called Anvil.
Yeah, for me, find of the festival, Anvil, The Story of Anvil, which is real-life Spinal Tap about this heavy metal band who were very big for about 5 seconds, then completely disappeared, and are now, 20 years later, trying to make a comeback. And it's one of those things, you watch it, you are in fits of laughter, you think these people cannot be real, and then, about halfway through, you really start to sympathise with them. And one of them's actually called Robb Reiner, and I thought it was a masterpiece. I just loved it.
Nothing is like being in the face of your fans. There's a moment, and they're actual beautiful moments, that human moments where you're in the same room as the people that love you.